my friend from Texas, Representative Moran.
Thank you to my friend, Mr. Kiley from California, for gathering us here today for something very important, to speak out against President Biden's nomination of Julie Su to be the next United States Secretary of Labor. As a former Republican member of the California legislature, Mr. Kiley knows all too well why this should not happen, and the rest of the country should take notice. As a former small business owner, I also understand why this should not happen because I understand both the needs of the employer and the employee, and have seen firsthand how empowering your employees is a leading factor in overall success of a business, and how managing with wise and prudent decision-making is the right way to go. That is something that Julie Su has not done, and has proven that during her time in California and here in Washington, D.C. During her time as Secretary of the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency, she repeatedly put big businesses and their wants ahead of the needs and concerns of workers. And in fact, she put unions ahead of the rights and the needs of workers. During this time, she championed California Assembly Bill 5, which reclassified independent contractors, harming them by considering them employees, and in fact taking that ability to be independent contractors away from many categories of workers that were intending to build their businesses and to build their lives. In doing so, it forced them into these formal employment relationships intended for no other purpose, and I want to pause there, for no other purpose than to drive up union enrollment. She's simply doing the bidding of big unions. On top of this, during the pandemic, Ms. Su's office facilitated the distribution of more than $30 billion in fraudulent claims, the largest exhibition of fraud in California's state history. When we look at what we want out of a labor secretary, we certainly want wisdom, and we want the ability to manage the department. And neither of those is present as characteristics in Ms. Su. I'm deeply concerned about the fate of hardworking Americans under the direction of Julie Su as Secretary of Labor. She does not understand the needs of workers, the responsibilities of employers, and has repeatedly demonstrated, as I mentioned, poor judgment in her official capacity. To try to dissolve the ability for workers to have that independent contractor relationship is simply misguided. Unfortunately, Julie Su is just another example of the Biden administration nominating someone who is neither qualified nor possessive of the right judgment to lead a department. Rather than work towards enacting meaningful policy that will benefit all Americans, the Biden administration continues to nominate individuals like Ms. Su who are certain to enact the president's liberal agenda and proposed policies, allowing him and his administration to bypass Congress and to bypass the American people. The misguided policies executed in California under Ms. Su when she was Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development there do not reflect the needs or the wishes of the East Texans that I represent, nor Americans as a whole. So I urge my colleagues in the Senate to reject the nomination of Julie Su for Labor Secretary. I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back to Mr. Kiley.